Welcome to Brandi's Corner. As per normal, things are crazy. But I'm repping today NWSL to the Bay. So if you're from the Bay Area, join our team. If you're not and you love the Bay Area and you want to join our team, join our team. We want to bring women's soccer to the Bay. So get on our hashtag here, get on our website, join us. We have a great day today. I am so pumped. So many questions, so many things to take care of, and not enough time. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Bev Priestman. And I want to know, Bev, when you come on, your full name and who calls you by your full name, because I'm sure your mother does, your mom, maybe somebody else, but Bev, let me give a rundown. I don't want to miss anything here, but Bev's going to kind of give us the big version. I'm going to give you the short version. Bev is known, and I don't know best known for, but it says here per Maria's writing, and she's usually dead on accurate. Best known for leading Canada to its first Olympic gold in 2021. Before stepping into the role in 2020, she served as an assistant coach to England women's national team, helping the Lionesses finish 4th in 2019 World Cup in France. Before that, she was back on this side of the pond with Canada Soccer, where she was the assistant coach for the squad that finished 6th at the 2015 World Cup in Canada and 2nd in 2016 in Rio. Bev has earned the UEFA Pro license in 2021. I want to hear all about that and everything. She's also a lifelong Manchester United fan. She has faults. See, people, she's not perfect. Bev, I have to say I'm a City fan, so I know that we have a lot to talk about that. But let's round of applause for Bev Priestman, and welcome to Brandi's Corner. Thank you so very much. How are you today?
Can you see me, Brandi? I'm just checking.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, brilliant. Looking less.
Can you not see yourself on the screen?
Yeah, I'm all good. We're here.
You are good to go. Okay, Bev, we're going to start way before all the things that I just said about you, all the great accomplishments that you've had as a coach. Tell us about what your first introduction to football, and I'm saying football because you are from the other side of the world of where you say football. So do you prefer if I say football or soccer? Does it matter?
Listen, I'm an adopted Canadian now. I'm good with soccer.
Okay,
I'll go with that.
Fair enough. So tell us a little bit about your background from when you were smaller and younger and first introduced to the game, and what was the hook that got you?
Yeah, so I would say I grew up in Northern England, Newcastle, a lot of street football. So I'd be the only girl in my sort of little town where I'm from, kicking a football around, putting jumpers down, very informal. Then I went to, I guess, I don't know what you call it, but primary school where I'm from, and the only girl in the soccer team. My nickname, you might know this, you might not, but my nickname was Beverly Bite Your Ankles, because I was this little, and I'm still little. I guess this little fierce footballer. But I think, just where I'm from, you grow up with it. It's in your blood. It's everywhere. It's probably the only sport. You know, I'm not very branched out in sports because of where I've come from. But I think I just love the game and had a ball at my feet all the time.
And just from you saying this, to me, it sounded like you were welcome and included. Was that the case?
Yeah, definitely. I think all the way through until I really moved to Canada, I would say I grew up in a male-dominated in coaching and in playing. But I think I was always sort of taken under the wing of people and one of the boys, you could say, really. And that's a very different upbringing, I think, to where I am now in Canada, where arguably it's a women's sport in many ways, and that's quite neat for me.
Ooh, you might have some people that might say, hey, the Canadian men's national team may be the greatest hope for CONCACAF in this World Cup.
That might be true. Yeah, that might be true.
I mean, that could be something to talk about. But in terms of going from being a player, like what was your experience in playing, and what level and why did you see yourself even in a position maybe where you could become a leader of other women in a higher level space?
So I was so committed to the game. I used to train 5 days a week. John Herdman, now the men's national team coach, he was my coach. But I played county level, which I think would be equivalent of like here in Canada's provincial, but I never played for my country. Again, the pathways then were very like, it wasn't something that, and I wasn't good enough. I didn't have a left foot. Had all the skills, put me in a 5v5 and I looked great, but put me on the big pitch and, so I think very early, because I love the game so much, I got into coaching very young. Actually coached with John quite a lot and really got hooked very, very early. I was an average academic at school, very bang average, I would say. But then I went to college, studied coaching, went to university, did science and football degree, and I really excelled because obviously it was something I was passionate about. So all I would say is I got into coaching very, very young. And if I didn't make it as a coach, I don't know what I would do because my degree, as you just heard, was in football or soccer.
Okay, so just for some clarification, because I didn't know this, I have met John Herdman many times, but I met him for the first time in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Where he was coaching the New Zealand team back when FIFA had the under-17 World Cup in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I came as kind of an ambassador to get the people excited about women's football. Who knew we would, like, fast forward 20 years, we would be having a World Cup being hosted by them. But he was the coach there, and obviously he's made a few moves since then. But your connection to him was you played for him as a young in England.
Yeah, he's from that same hometown. We lived 10 minutes away from each other. And now we're the men's and women's coach of Canada Soccer. So so what I would say is I worked full time. I followed John to New Zealand, came to Canada. That's the link really. And then obviously I went my own way to work with Phil Neville at England. But obviously know John from way back when. But I think, John was very influential on my career, but also when I went to university in Liverpool, Mo Marley, previous England player, coach of Everton ladies, has since coached with England, got the bronze medal at under 20. So she was my first sort of introduction to, wow, there's female coaches. And so really inspired me in that sense to say, actually, this can be a career. And there's someone who's really awesome at it. And from that point, again, I really kicked on. So it just shows the importance of being able to see what you want to be.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that you're in the process of writing a book.
I haven't done enough yet in my career to write one, Brandi.
No, but this could be volume 1, and Maria is an outstanding author. I'm sorry, I'm throwing Maria out there to you right now. But okay, so now my whole train of thought has been sidetracked because I'm very curious to hear your perspective on the type of coach John is and mentor John is and was, and Phil Neville. And because, go, take it.
Okay, so opposite ends of the spectrum, I would say, very, very different, which was great for me because I'd only known one way of doing it, and that was, working with John for a very, very long time, shaped who I am as a coach, there's no doubt. Phil, very different career, right? So Phil, Champions League player, Sir Alex Ferguson, player sort of mindset. John never really played at the highest level, but has coached and learnt the game through a coaching lens and probably academic lens. So different. Phil would be more, he's come from a club background. So the importance of, and it's impacted me a lot in flowing sessions and viewing the lens through a player's lens. John is more systematic, coaching methodology, build up sessions. And I think what I learned is when I went and worked with Phil, my personality is probably more like I could blend more towards Phil, but the foundation and the coaching, the vision, the part of John around the aspiration, the vision, the planning, all of that has really shaped me to be really good at that. So a blend, I think I'm somewhere in the middle, but I did get exposure to opposite ends of the spectrum, which as a coach about to get their first gig as a senior head coach, it was exactly where I needed to be. I was in the passenger seat of two people driving a car, learning, making mistakes, succeeding. I got to take all that in and be part of that experience, feel the high, feel the low, which really shaped me. And in the pandemic, like everybody, I actually, probably the lowest point in my career, you would have followed. We did the World Cup with England. Afterwards, the results started to dwindle, you could say. Phil didn't renew his contract. The FA went with Serena. I knew she was going to bring in her own assistant. And I sort of was at a point for the first time in my career, okay, where am I? Where am I going? I had in front of me a World Cup, Olympic Games, and a home Euros when I signed. Got the World Cup, and those two tournaments, because of the pandemic, got moved. And I remember being in the pandemic, lowest point in my career, but reinvented myself. For the first time in 10 years, I'd stopped. I wasn't on a hamster wheel of running from one camp to the other. And I really started to write and define how I wanted to play, what my values were. So when that job came and Canada came, I felt more ready because I had a chance to reflect. You just got my life.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say, I feel like that is, we when we find ourselves in great either it's angst or in hardship, we have to find our resiliency. I mean, having been on the sideline as a player for 2.5 years from 2 ACLs almost back to back, like I feel like it was awful, obviously, because I couldn't be on the pitch and I wanted to contribute. But I feel like it was the most necessary time for me to really evaluate how much I loved the game, what I wanted to bring to the game, what kind of teammate I was, how I saw the game, or how the coach was trying to communicate to me. So I can really appreciate that time. So for John, it was an academic side. For Phil, it was kind of that player-centric understanding, whether it's the mood, the need of the player. And so you said you reinvented yourself. What is it that your values that you hold like at the highest part of your list? If you have to say, here's the list that defines me as a coach, this will always be so.
Yeah, I think the biggest one, and the one that you would have heard maybe with Canada when I got the job, was bravery. So you look at my career. At the age of 16, I got on the plane to New Zealand. I went and coached and played out there, came back. I moved to New Zealand, spent 5 to 8 years there. I then got on a plane, came to Canada. I then made probably the bravest move of my whole career. I was very comfortable, went and worked with Phil, took a risk. Bravery was my biggest thing and is my biggest thing. And with that, I mean, I felt that Canada lacked that sort of true belief that they were as good as they could be. And really, it's the biggest thing. I want brave conversations with players. I want to be able to have staff members that are brave, make brave decisions, have brave conversations, and then players who are brave on the pitch. And that just doesn't mean defensively. That means go on, take a risk. I'd always say to a player, I don't care if you give the ball away, because actually another big value of mine is hard work. And so I know I've got the best team in the world to win the ball back quickly. So take a risk. And if you play forward more because you took that risk, well, great. So I think bravery's been the biggest thing that sits true to who I am, because I think, you only get out of life what you put in, and sometimes you have to take big risks.
Well, it's a very interesting concept to me, because having played with some of the highest achievers in the game, I feel like bravery was something that we didn't have to talk about, right? It just felt like it was a part of what maybe it was the characteristics of the players that were selected. But being a youth coach, and maybe for those people who are listening in right now, how do you propose that you give your players bravery? Because that seems to be like an intrinsic, motivated characteristic, as opposed to like learning a physical skill. How do you go through that process with them and for them?
I think it boils down to confidence. When you can be brave when you're confident and you know who you are. And I think what I would always say, even senior players that I work with now, like, what is your identity? What do you bring? What's your X factor? You know, I'll use a player, Desiree Scott for Canada, right? Has made a living out of, you know, breaking up play, being the destroyer in the midfield. That's who she is. So when she's having a tough game or gives the ball away, I'd always say, like, go back to who you are and do that well. And I think players have to feel safe. There have to be a level of comfort to be able to feel brave and safety. But I think it goes back to knowing what the X factor of the individual is. If it's about world-class passing, then make your next pass. And, you know, so I think just people being clear on who they are and what they're about. And that relates to you as a coach too, right? What's your X factor? Because ultimately when the tough gets going, that's what you want to bring to the table.
Well, I think that's really valuable for everybody, no matter whether that's on the pitch as a coach or as a teammate or as a manager or, you know, in business. You need to know your team. You need to know your team. Now, what happens when those things, those things that really are their X factor aren't really impacting the game? Then what's the next move for you as the coach when you're not getting the result that you need?
Yeah, I think it's just like, yeah, in the moment, obviously as a coach, you have to make changes. Like, I think it's different youth versus senior, but I think it ultimately is making the player, either pushing the player and challenging them, or that level of confidence. And I think the confidence starts and the bravery and the understanding of what the player brings, and then you challenge. And if you want to get more from people, you've got to set the bar high. So I'll go back to Desiree Scott. Her identity is destroy you, win the ball back. But what people don't know, the element of bravery, 2016 Olympics to 2020 or 2021, she doubled the amount of forward passes she made in that tournament. Why? Because she was confident, she knew who she was, but then I challenged her and said, you need to be braver now. If we're going to get bronze to gold, you need to do more. And so every individual player had a sort of bravery target that they were going after in that 9-month period. So I think challenge is also important.
So for Desiree, was it just the sheer amount of forward passes, or was it the amount of passes and then how many passes she completed, like that execution? And if she saw that they were actually getting to the target and you were maintaining that possession, that then elevated things even more?
Yeah, I think it's successful forward passes. And I think ultimately it was a mindset, right? Like you show for the ball, you get on the ball more often, you know you've got that license now when someone shows confidence in you, and you get rewarded through being successful. So yeah, I think that's just one example, but there's many, many more. It'll be wingers who, turn down the opportunity to run at a fullback. Instead, they'll play a ball backwards. And I think it's them knowing that they've got the license. There's more risk. You'll give the ball away. That's fine. Because you'll win it back.
Right. Oh gosh, I was going to ask you something. In terms of Desiree's example, we'll just stay on this. You wanted her to be brave and not just, okay, we know what you're really good at, and now we want to get you to do the next play, which is, you've won the ball and now let's play in a positive manner. But I think what the beauty about football is that it takes all of us, right? So Desiree can only do what Desiree does if then she has someone to connect to.
Yeah.
And so how have you integrated the connection of Desiree's goals to her teammates and showing them that they have responsibility also to Desiree?
Yeah, so every player had this, and it was explicit, and it was almost like a card that they put in their locker going into games, and it was sort of something we did going into the Olympics. But I think it's born out of as well. When I came in, there's certain things, like one of the key principles that I brought in, I wanted for the players to look and play forward more. That was one of the things, because I felt we kept too much possession, but we didn't actually do anything with it. So I think twofold. There's an overarching, these are the three in possession, these are the three out, that is going to be our identity as a team. But then falling out of that is then how the players fit into that identity and what would have been a structure. If you look, Desiree always had two players ahead of her through our structure to then allow us, and it's something we measured. How many times do we find those players, etc. So I think it's a sum of parts of little bits of how they then get to the team structure, strategy, etc.
And I feel like there's always, you know, in these big elite teams, this is something that I've shared many times. You know, you're talking about highly competitive, highly motivated people, right? And you don't just have 11 of them.
Yeah.
You have 2 squads worth, really, and plus maybe a couple extra. And so now you've got this internal competitiveness and challenge that's going on, because everybody wants to be the player who's in the starting lineup. And so now you have to be able to manage these big personalities when it's only 11 players get to be in the lineup. How did you feel as, you know, how did you manage that yourself with your staff? And then how did you, I mean, obviously we're going to get to Christine Sinclair. Like, I mean, that's a legend, right? She's going to play and score so many goals and change women's football in Canada for sure, but also, you know, shape it around the world. You know, how does that even now happen with your team when you have a player like that, and how does she help you?
Yeah, I think, you know, I was quite lucky, really. I came in a global pandemic. She believes Cup we play US #1 in the world, which you know very well. We had 8 players missing. One of them was Christine. So in many ways, I was forced to trust the depth and understand the depth. But consciously, I got an overriding feeling that the team was too comfortable when I got the job, when I met with every player one-on-one, asked some good questions, and learned there was this overriding feeling of comfort. And so, you know, that saying of, I think it's smooth seas don't make great sailors, I knew I had to make it uncomfortable again. And with that comes big calls. You know, Steph Labbe had an unbelievable Olympic Games, but what people might not know is my opening game against the US, she didn't start. And right up until the Olympic Games, she didn't know if she was the #1 or not. Some of that's through performance, but some of that's also through knowing that you get the best out of people when they're prepared for them rough seas. And that's a little bit of how it was. I think players can't feel that jersey is a given. You're never going to get the best out of people if that's the case. And I think you use the likes of a Christine, you know, she's my captain. I'll always engage her in, you know, for example would be Sophie Schmidt. You know, Sophie Schmidt, I had to make a huge call going into that Olympic Games around the 18, and luckily enough, they extended it to 22, but that was a huge call to someone with over 200 plus caps, probably Sink's really good mate, a veteran. Of course, like speaking to your veterans, engaging them in how you make these decisions. What does that player need? Like, all of these things are really important, because ultimately they're in the locker room. They know the dynamic of their team, and you have to use them.
This is so great. Okay. I know we have lots of questions in our Q&A, and we're going to have a breakout session. I can't right now. Okay. What are you here? I'm going to read a couple to you real quick. What are your thoughts on how players are using their voices to change the game? So I'm like, what's happening? This is off the field. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of communication on the field. It's absolutely necessary. But what about what's happening around the world in football? What's, you know, here in the US with the pay equity, and now what's happening in Spain? Yeah. Any commentary on that?
Yeah, I think, listen, the players, and in my case, they've now got a gold medal, etc. I think using your platform is incredibly important for change, for social change, for awareness. You look at Quinn, the bravery Quinn's had, that's had a huge impact on you know, people who have role models. I think we have to use our platform. It's a big part of and big component, I know, with the US team, but also with Canada. It's, you know, we want to make changes for the future generations, and I think using their platform is incredibly powerful.
And another question is, how do you ensure inclusion in your hiring, and what goes into vetting your team?
You talking staff here?
Yeah, this is a question from Everett. I'm going to assume that hiring is like your staff, yeah, and then vetting, you know, your team. It's like, I think team is a hard one because maybe we don't all have the same philosophy on life, or whether that's from a politics standpoint or a religious standpoint, or anything like that. How do you go about um,
Yeah.
balancing those?
Yeah, I think for staff, obviously, it's incredibly important to me. There's been cases, and it happens all around the world. But I think, picking the right people first before. Sometimes you pick the people before you pick the competency, because you get someone who's hungry, willing to learn, all the rest of it. But you've got a great person. I think that's a big part of who we are, what our locker room's about. And then you look at little things. I'll use the Quinn example. What we did with our staff very early doors is education, training, the players understanding how we make it more inclusive. And I think I'm quite lucky like that. I've got a group of players that have a great culture. We have cultural meetings, and all of these sorts of things. And these issues are really, really important that the group want to make a stand for in, whatever setting it might be. It's a big part of who we are. We know what our platform can do. And we want to be a safe, inclusive environment where people can be exactly who they are.
And is that what you're saying? That's a part of your cultural meeting?
Yeah, well, I think, the players, for example, we have a group that, like a captain's group, that'll target, you talk about Pride. We played during Pride, right? We're going to use this platform for that. So I just think the group are very forward thinking and know that they have a platform to affect, different communities and change. And they're very proactive in doing that. And obviously I want to create an environment where they can do that.
Awesome. I believe now Rachel, we'll have a breakout. This is so fantastic. I hope, it's not going to be easy to get to everybody, Bev, because there's only one Bev Priestman. There's only one Bev Priestman. So we'll have a breakout. Rachel, if you can help us do that, and then we will come back and we will talk some more. Bev, this is so awesome. I am Q&A, and we're going to have a breakout session. I can't right now. Okay. What are you here? I'm going to read a couple to you real quick. What are your thoughts on how players are using their voices to change the game? So I'm like, this is off the field. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of communication on the field. It's absolutely necessary. But what about what's happening around the world in football? What's, here in the US with the pay equity, and now what's happening in Spain? Yeah. Any commentary on that?
Yeah, I think, listen, the players, and in my case, they've now got a gold medal, etc. I think using your platform is incredibly important for change, for social change, for awareness. You look at Quinn, the bravery Quinn's had, that's had a huge impact on people who have role models. I think we have to use our platform. It's a big part of and big component. I know with the US team, but also with Canada, it's we want to make changes for the future generations. And I think using their platform is incredibly powerful.
And another question is, how do you ensure inclusion in your hiring, and what goes into vetting your team?
You talking staff here?
Yeah, this is a question from Everett. I'm going to assume that hiring is like your staff, yeah. And then vetting, your team. It's like, team. I think team is a hard one because maybe we don't all have the same philosophy on life, or whether that's from a politics standpoint or a religious standpoint, or anything like that. How do you go about balancing those?
Yeah, I think for staff, obviously, it's incredibly important to me. There's been cases, and it happens all around the world. But I think, picking the right people first before. Sometimes you pick the people before you pick the competency, because you get someone who's hungry, willing to learn, all the rest of it. But you've got a great person. I think that's a big part of who we are, what our locker room's about. And then you look at little things. I'll use the Quinn example. What we did with our staff very early doors is education, training, the players understanding how we make it more inclusive. And I think I'm quite lucky like that. I've got a group of players that have a great culture. We have cultural meetings, And all of these sorts of things and these issues are really, really important that the group want to make a stand for in, you know, whatever setting it might be. It's a big part of who we are. We know what our platform can do. And we want to be a safe, inclusive environment where people can be exactly who they are.
And is that what you're saying? That's a part of your cultural meeting?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, the players, for example, we have a group that, like a captain's group that'll target, you know, you talk about Pride, we played during Pride, right, we're going to use this platform for that. So I just think the group are very forward thinking and know that they have a platform to affect, you know, different communities and change, and they're very proactive in doing that. And obviously I want to create an environment where they can do that.
What was your best skill as a player?
Oh, you know, I had like the little step over, the nimble, agile tricks. I had all the tricks in the book, but didn't get me anywhere.
I have to say, I bet you do, because I can see the way you're doing. You got that.
Well, all 5 foot of me, I think I needed something.
Well, you know, I find that to be true. The smaller players seem to have the agility, and so they have to solve problems by being able to manipulate the ball. Sometimes the bigger players don't have to have that, and therefore they lack that the most. And then for you, maybe it's the playing over the space. So that's very interesting. I find that to be quite true. Okay. What's your best skill as a coach?
Ooh. I think I would say like motivating a group towards a mindset. You know, every camp I go into, there's a real theme or there's a real focus, because I believe you can have all the tactics in the world, but if the mindset of the group isn't right, then like collectively getting the group towards a common mindset, goal, vision, whatever you want to call it.
Do you do that in just a classroom setting, or you're talking about you take that to the field as well? Like, what's the?
I would say more in a meeting way, like, you know, in the classroom, but also individual conversations, influencing, even getting the staff around me to operate in a certain way that might generate so I think probably more off the field, but then when you review footage and you're in a classroom, pulling it back to that mindset or goal that you're talking about.
Well, I have I like books. I love Maria's books, number one. To everybody out there, if you want a good laugh, Maria is exceptional writer in that way. She's fantastic. But I read a lot of things that are not football related that I bring to football. Yes. This happens to be one of my favorites. Limitless Mind.
Okay.
Joe Bowler. This is about mathematics, but it's what I like about it is that for so long here, mathematics has been taught one way, and it's kind of like the faster you know it, the better you are in math, and you get to progress. And a lot of people are left behind in mathematics because they say, oh, you don't have the aptitude for math. But math actually can be very creative, and depending on how you come to the problem, right? And then now if you're asked to go away from the problem, come back to the problem with a different perspective. Like, how can you look at you can draw a picture, you can use blocks, you can articulate it through words. So I find this book very helpful for me in coaching. And Joe Bowler happens to be a supporter of the NWSL to the Bay. So there you go. That was that honestly blew my mind. I was looking through the people who came and got a shirt, and it had her name. I was like, I'm reading her book. So that is phenomenal. This is another one. Super easy. Chop wood, carry water. Super easy. This says how to fall in love with the process of becoming great, and that it just doesn't happen overnight. So I love that you have themes. Do you have sports psychologists that you work with?
Yes.
And how do you work with the sports psychologists when it comes to your themes or meetings, or do these things that you come up with on your own?
Yeah, I think I've got a relatively new mental performance coach. A woman called Mariah Bullock, played at NWSL level, Stanford. So what's really cool is she gets the
Watch
game.
out! She's from Stanford. You gotta watch out. You gotta watch out.
Yeah. But what I would say is I think naturally my mind works that way. So I'm a big believer in, in some environments, it's all the sports psychologist comes up with it. But I believe that culture, everyone has a piece of it. But yes, generally I'll bounce themes and ideas past Mariah, get her thoughts, or, I felt the group were like this last camp. What do you think about, so we bounce off each other really in that sense.
Excellent. You coach women's football, but you grew up playing with boys, it seemed, mostly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on being a manager of a men's team? Is that something you've thought about? Is that a desire? Has it crossed your mind? Do you think it's appropriate?
Yeah, do you know what? There'll be somebody at a high level that does it first, and I think it'll be a breakthrough. But is it something that it doesn't drive me in the sense of I don't yet see it, and it's my problem really. I don't yet see it as a pathway, and that's because it's never been done. What I would say is I'm one of those people you tell me it can't be done, and I want to do it. But it doesn't necessarily, it's not an inner driver of me to be, the first female to coach, whatever. I love women's football. Yeah. But I think Emma Hayes. Yeah.
I thought I saw something from Emma Hayes, and this is not a direct quote, but kind of a general concept was, why would I leave the team I have? I have the best team.
Yeah.
And I think that, the general population believe that coaching in men's football is the highest standard that you can achieve. And so why wouldn't you as a coach want to go into that arena? But I really appreciated her comment to say, like, I coach great athletes. I coach great footballers. I have a supportive ownership or environment. I feel like I'm in a really great coaching position. So I think I'm just interested. I love football. And I have coached young men. And I find them to be different, coaching men versus women. So that's like
a bit more do this, okay, I'll do it. Whereas you coach and it's a little bit more why. They want to understand that. That's been my experience. I coached quite a lot of boys teams or boys, Bobby Charlton Soccer School. I worked there, and you had some French, some Spanish boys that would come for the summer, and I found it to be a lot more like, just tell me and I'll do it. That was my experience. Yeah,
and I feel like when you talk about your greatest asset, which is this bravery component, I feel like that exists for young boys. Like they are not afraid, and even if it's like they make the biggest fools out of themselves, they're still going to be brave. Which is a fabulous quality that I think we need to bring to the female side of things. So what are you working on right now with Team Canada? What's the next thing that you're trying to get your team to do, or you would like to share, or that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think what you would have seen last summer, we had 9 months going in. When I took over, we were conceding a lot of goals. We shored that up, and that's probably what got us on the podium. But there's a reality there of we need to be able to score more goals and be more ruthless in the final third of the pitch, which I know, Brandi, we had that discussion around. If in many ways, the US have that killer instinct, always have in that part of the pitch. So for me, I'm trying to make sure we have that hardest team to beat clean sheet mentality and keep that, but at the same time move towards having more of a ruthless, getting into key areas. We're sort of measuring 3 key things in the final third of the pitch, that ultimately will achieve more chances, more high quality chances, and ultimately more goals. And post Olympics, our metrics that we're measuring are getting better and better and better. So really that's our goal now, is to be a team that doesn't just draw or, 1-0. I would like to be a team that can, particularly tier 2 teams, dominate and score more goals. I think that's something the whole group are really keen on doing.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I have to have a follow-up and dig a little deeper. You said measuring 3 things. What are the 3 things?
One of the things that we are measuring, I'll give you an example, is like assist zones. So rather than crossing from really wide areas, we're crossing from what I would term, in the way we work, is lane 2 and lane 4. If you look at the pitch, 5 lanes, crossing lane 2 and lane 4, or passing from lane 2 and lane 4 in that part of the pitch. Because what we know is that the highest percentage of goals come from crossing from that area, rather than them hopeful crosses. It's the area that centre backs, it's the grade that the centre back, you come out the width of the goal versus you don't, you're going to create more high quality chances in the box.
And where are you getting that data that's showing that that's where they come from? This is just women's football or all of football?
All of football. And then I think post Olympics we did a review, top 10 teams, where their goals have come from, how they've, basically where's our gaps, and that was one of the key things that we went after. And obviously to get in them areas, you've got to have players that are willing to take fullbacks on 1v1 too, rather than maybe crossing so early, etc.
Yeah, I'm a big, I call it the half space. So those are the half spaces, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm a believer in that. Okay, number 2.
Number 2 is shots from the triangle, is what we call it. Now players laugh at this, but we've got an area on the pitch that we know that, particularly now in the women's game, the goalkeeping's got so much better. Goals used to be scored outside the triangle a lot more. So always having numbers in that triangle and shots from in that triangle.
Is the triangle from like the goal?
Yeah, basically you go 10 spots. Yeah, that area there. When we first introduced it, the players were like, "Oh, the triangle's the wrong way around," but now they've bought into it, so that's good. That was a good discussion. And then
are you saying coming from more central areas?
It's kind of like basically my biggest pet peeve is when players will try and shoot. It's never going to go in, or if it is, it's going to be a 1 in 10. So basically, how can we get the ball in that area more often and take shots from that area more often? And what we do know is the less touches you take, obviously, the more chance. So we've worked with players on that. And then the last thing is our biggest gap that we had was turning the back line of an opposition. Progression. I measure something called progression rates, and that was our biggest gap. We progressed beyond frontline midfield really well, but that's sort of now, how do we, progress beyond the back line?
I feel like that's probably one of the greatest challenges, is turning the opponent around, whether that's in the attacking third or even in the midfield third, right? Is getting them to, you have to threaten the backspace. Mm-hmm. It could be with the ball or it could be with a run. It could even just be body language, really. But just the understanding of that manipulation of the opponent is something that I feel like was my absolute delight as a player. I feel like I could get the opponent to do whatever I wanted them to do, by just making certain types of decisions with or without the ball.
And then midfielders with great vision to play it or whatever. Yeah.
But I think the key driver to most of these things, to all of them, really is communication. And why that's so is, if a player has their head down, they can't see what's happening. And then if a player is not willing to express like a potential, then they're not sharing what information that could be beneficial for everybody. Yes. So these are great. These are things that I'm working with my under 19 girls, which they're going to be going to college for the first time, which is a great segue right now for what is your feeling about where the state of women's soccer is here in the US, because we drive a lot of players through our collegiate system from Canada back into the professional game and then back to the national team. But diametrically opposed to that is now these young Europeans and these teams now having younger players getting on the books, so to speak, for professional teams.
Yeah, I think I'll have a biased view really, because as you know, Canada yet doesn't have a professional league. And for me, it's a huge gap, because I think culturally, and it's very ingrained in North American culture, is to go NCAA, get a scholarship, obviously play soccer, but also at the end of the day, you're one injury away from a career-ending decision. So there's that part of looking at the whole player. But I think for me now on the world stage, to compete and stay competing with the world stage, I think you have to accumulate more hours playing soccer and coaching and across all different sports science, playing all of these different areas. I think what I learned recently with our under-20s, you're playing against France, and those players are at PSG getting a full year of, professional soccer. And that's a big gap. If I just look at it from a high performance, staying at the top of the game, but I think there is a side where that collegiate experience is a unique one, and it shapes you as a human being. But if you're asking me about filling a gap, that's why I would say Canada needs a professional league, is so that we can have training all year round, that teaches players all year.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting debate. Obviously we can't cover the full depth of the benefits to both sides, but I really feel, even the argument about the 10,000 hours, you're right. Is that repetitive in one space work a detriment sometimes, right? Because you can have overuse, and you can have, you're missing other opportunities to be well-rounded in a moment, which I feel is in football. It's one of the reasons I love football so much is because you have to be a sprinter, you have to be a long distance runner, you have to play in the air, you have to be able to play on the ground. You would love it if your players could be two-footed. Bev, work on your left foot.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to come in the game where you're going to have to use it. And you can definitely see those players who are extremely uncomfortable in the moment, don't have the bravery to try their off foot. So that's interesting. Okay. Why, we're going to do, I know we've asked you for a little bit more time, and I am so grateful. So I have 7,000 questions to ask you in like 2.5 minutes.
No problem.
I'm going to do my best. Ready? Oh, no.
Ready.
Before we do that, you mentioned your hair before. And what is it about your hair that is about, I don't know if it's your pregame, I don't know if it's your whole thing. You said short hair is hard, and I took out my hair to show you this disaster of a coif I had from yesterday. Tell us about the hair.
Well, I was just saying, everyone thinks with short hair, it's like, oh, you just roll up. Well, it's my thing. And I would say my game day routine was every match day, pre-game meeting, meal, and then I have to put purple shampoo in my hair, which for anyone who has like highlights or blonde, it's like, I want fresh hair for the game. So purple shampoo is my pre-game routine.
I don't even know what this is. What are you talking? That sounds like something my grandmother would use.
Well, no, it's not what your grandmother would use. Well, she might, I don't know, but yeah, it makes it less yellow and a bit brighter.
My goodness. Okay, I'm writing this down. Purple
if there's
shampoo.
Any brands out there that would like to, get involved, then feel free. In the chat, buy shampoo. See, it's a thing.
Really? Didn't know. Shoot. Uh-oh. Where did you go?
I'm here. You. No, you've still got me.
No, what? Oh my gosh. Do you see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
There we go. Okay, Bev. Lastly, how do you choose your outfit? How do you know what you're going to wear for game day?
Yeah, this is a big issue on game day.
Stresses me out.
Yeah.
This is something that would stress me.
It just, I wish, to be honest, I wish my tracksuit fit me. I'm small, as everyone knows. If my coaching gear actually fit me better, then I probably would some days just be in a tracksuit. But anyway, small person issues. So yeah, I just, whatever I'm feeling, and there is a group of people that I'll say, how's this look? And there we go. That's how I choose it. But it is a big stressor, and I am a big, my shoes are a big part of the outfit.
Always. Shoes are always, well, I think that comes from my playing days, because if your feet feel good, anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And my players did say that I had good shoe game, so I'll take it.
There you go. Okay. When do you wear a hat?
No, never.
Is that because you come from the UK and you don't wear hats there?
No, I think yeah, short. I look like a 8-year-old boy if I put a hat on. That would be my summary.
You are hilarious, Bev. I really enjoy this. Okay. Books or podcasts?
Podcasts. Don't have time because I've got a little boy.
How old?
He's just turned 4. So now, I used to read a lot of books. Now I'm all for a podcast, walking the dog quickly in my lunch break or whatever.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. You're on a journey that I hope everybody gets to experience. Raising people is no joke.
Nope.
What have you learned in parenting that you use in soccer?
That it's just a game. I know that sounds bad. You win, you lose, you go home to your little boy, he puts a smile on your face. I think now I'm more well-rounded in life.
Excellent.
So I have better empathy with, when I'm speaking to young players, I think if this was my kid, how would I want to make them feel, etc.
Excellent. Do you have to deal with the politics in clubs? Francis is asking, like, what's going around?
Not really, no. Not on the ground, no.
Excellent.
And I like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We're going to do, these are Brandi's hot shots. So, this is Brandi's corner. We're talking about the corner. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
You can if you feel inclined to answer more than yes, no, you can.
Okay.
VAR.
Yes.
Damn it! I thought you were going to be on my
medal. Gold medal. VAR. Help me out. Penalties. Spicy food? No.
So British.
Not cultured enough. No.
You're so not cultured enough. Home kit or away kit?
Home kit.
Well, I was going to say, so tracksuits. Yes, you like them best. Sneakers. Sneakers or
trainers.
Trainers.
Is
that what you?
Where I'm from, it's trainers. Yeah.
Trainers. Okay. Excellent. Beer or wine?
Both.
Of course.
I love wine. Wine.
Red or white?
Both, but I'm more of a white than a red. I don't have a drinking problem. I'm just putting that out there.
No, you drink everything. That's not a problem.
From Newcastle, sorry.
You know what? These questions, I have so many other questions that I want to get into. I love Newcastle. It's a great city. We went there for the London Olympics, and the little square and that cute little market area outside, it was fantastic. Bev, we've gone beyond our time. I am so grateful to everybody who's asked questions. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get to all of them. Maybe we'll have you back, Bev, after the next big event, which we know is coming up. Again, I'm going to say I would love to come and be a fly on the wall and watch you do what you do. I'd love to be invited to come and learn from your great coaching style and approach. And I hope together we can continue to make women's football great. So thank you so much, Bev. If there's anything you want to leave us with, the floor is yours.
Well, one, I think I really, really appreciate you getting me on, Brandi. You know, we met at an airport in Monterey, but, you know, like, you're an absolute legend of the women's game. So I really feel very honored to be on here. Second thing I would say is really appreciate everyone taking the time to come on. I know half of you are probably at work and shouldn't be on here, but you are anyway. And the last thing I would say is hashtag NWSL to the Bay.
Yes! All right, Bev.
There we go.
I love it.
I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, all the best to you. Take care. Enjoy walking the dog. Enjoy your son. And we all look forward to seeing what happens for CONCACAF and Canada Soccer. And again, let's stay in touch through Women in Soccer. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it.